What up, it's Guru Jojo, and in this particular video I'm going to be speaking about the bad habits and some fun facts about each of the zodiac signs. Nobody's safe. I'm not safe either. Please don't take offense to this video. It's just fun. It's full of fun facts and just like facts. And just getting a deeper insight into the different elements of life and how that ends up playing out in human-like characteristics, or not even human-like, literally in human characteristics, since we all are like the zodiac signs, basically. So, I'm going to be doing this by element. So I'm starting with the fire element. In general, the fire element, Aries, Leo, Sagittarius, it's everything that's being seen, right? So it's like the energy that we can see. And usually this has to do more so with more excitable emotions and feelings. So things like being excited, being happy, being shocked, surprised, like stuff like that. So a lot of times the fire signs in general, they just have a bad habit of expressing more deeper inner passions and emotions, and it comes out wrong like a lot of times when it's being expressed. So for example, Aries, a lot of times Aries people, they could just be too direct. You know, things where you're kind of supposed to be like a little bit like cute, and like the process should be a little bit more gradual and like more critical in the way that you approach the situation, making sure you're getting the right cues. It's like Aries don't care. They don't care about your cues or anything. They just want what they want. So like if they like somebody or something like that, they could be too direct. Like, like, you know what I'm saying? It's like those things where other people, if they think someone's cute or they like someone, they're going to be like, let me feel her out and see like how she feels about me. Aries is just like, I don't give a shit about how she feels about me. I like her. She gonna like me too. Like, so it's like kind of weird because, they could be very impulsive in their desires. And so a lot of times it can cause like things like explosion, like energy, explosive like energy, because it's just like going from here to there because they saw it and they just react. They want it. So they could just lack mannerisms sometimes in certain things and be overly competitive and aggressive when it's not called for. Also, with Aries, they could just be very detached from experience. Like they'll experience something, they'll know how the outcome is of the situation, and then proceed to carry on into another circumstance with a similar result, and then wonder like, why did that happen? Like, oh my God. It's like, yo, you already had those nachos and you knew those nachos don't agree with your stomach. You been had those nachos 2-3 times. The same shit happened. Your stomach was jacked up. You had to take Pepto-Bismol, whatever it's called. And now you went back and had the same nachos again. You thought, because it's a different day of the week or something, like, oh, I'm gonna be fine, or I drink some ginger ale or something, I'm gonna be fine. Like, you can't, like, it's like weird. It's like they're so impulsive in their desires, and they end up getting into bad things, like things that have like a bad result, and then they'll like be mad about it after, like, and try to act like they don't understand why it happened. Like they will flip out on you and then just be like, so you want to go out to eat? Like, it's just like, like, you just slapped me like like 5 minutes ago. So like Aries could have a bad habit of that. Like their emotions and feelings could switch kind of rapidly. Leos, they also have a bad habit of just playing out a role. Like they are so easily subconsciously influenced to how other people want. Like they almost like want what other people want a little bit too much. They focus too much on what other people's like dreams and desires are, to the point that they will lose their own identity trying to be what they think somebody else wants for themselves, and to the point where they could be wrong, and then it's kind of like stupid what they did all along. So that's kind of like a bad habit of them, like assuming that they know what people's desires are and then like trying to be that. It's like a weird resentment energy, jealousy kind of energy that's like weird. that I noticed that Leos could sometimes do. On the other hand, they could play out a lot of roles. So they could really detach from themselves too in order to maintain attention. They could just do too much. It's like, bruh, like, you already do all these like things. Like, why? It's like, why? And it's just because like one person gave them attention. It's like, you can't sacrifice that one little attention just to like maybe like for the better good in some way. It's like, yo, like, give somebody else like that energy. It's like weird. I don't know what it is, but it's like they just very prideful people sometimes. Like, oh, nope, I can't let the attention leave me. Can't let the light leave me. If they get in a relationship with you, like, they will take your dream and like think that it's like a shared value. Like, you could literally be a female and you could be dating a Leo male, and like you could be into like makeup or something, and like Leo like the male Leo will somehow match your vibe. Like, they will really like start wearing eyeliner or something. I swear to you, like, it's like a weird thing about Leos. Like, they will do something that has to do with beauty, like in some kind of way. Like, whether they'll start taking like pictures on like magazines, like men's magazine, or they'll start wearing more feminine clothes. Like, they will match your vibe, and they will actually like try to be better than you at it, which is like really annoying. It's like, yo, you weren't even into that, but they realize it's a shared value. Like, they had a passion for it all along, and they'll be good at it too, because like for some reason, like, Leos could really just like get into a vibe. Like, they really don't care sometimes about where the attention is coming from, or they don't care about like actually analyzing really what's going on in the situation. So they could be like manipulated into doing too much because people could feel that vibe off of you. They feel that you want that attention, so they will use that to their advantage. And then a lot of times Leos be playing that role out for other people. It's weird. It's like people will literally just like exaggerate how they feel about you in a given circumstance, especially at work. You gotta be careful at work. People will manipulate Leos. Like, I've seen it. They'll be like, oh, yo, you did this real well. Like, nobody could do it better than you. And you fed into that attention. Meanwhile, their intentions was just not to do that work. Now you're doing it because that person gave you some goddamn praise. You got too much pride, and now you got too much work to do. So Leos, they can have trouble with stuff like that. They have a real bad habit of getting fed into people's attention that they provide to them, to the point that they're not being realistic as to like what's really going on in the situation. Sagittarius, they just have a bad habit of basically like being too detached from their emotions and feelings, to the point that they just will be insulting to others by accident. Also too, they could just be overly indulgent. You know, your emotional body kind of gives you signals when it's time to stop or it's time to start. Like, this could be as simple as knowing when it's time for you to stop eating, or knowing when it's time for you to stop drinking, or knowing, you know what I'm saying? It's like they could be so detached from that knowingness of the basic parts of life, but they could preach their ass off about like anything, like about like bigger philosophical concepts. They know that, but when it comes to like practical everyday life, like, you should probably stop. You should probably stop drinking. Like, you had 3 bottles already. You can stop now. They're not attached to that shit. And Sagittarius is too. They're so detached from their emotions and feelings in a more like feeling basis, like their actual emotions towards situations, to the point that it starts to filter out into another form of sense. So this is like sometimes why like people can develop things like schizophrenia, because it's like you are so detached from your emotions and feelings that now you hearing voices of those emotions and feelings that you were detached from. But what happens is it comes out extreme because it's been so detached for so long that when it finally starts to like pour out, it's too much. So you start hearing voices and shit telling you to do extreme things. It's just like, no, like nobody told you to do that. That's you not being connected to how you felt in the beginning. And now that emotion and feeling grew so much that it's coming out extreme. Like, you know, you could be mad at your friend and it's like, oh, like, go kill Tommy. Like, it's just like, no, don't do that. You were just mad at Tommy like a couple of years ago, but you never addressed the situation. Now you got a schizophrenic voice, a spirit telling you to kill them. That's how long you've been detached from your emotions and feelings. You've created a spirit to tell you to do the extreme. That's a real bad habit that Sagittarius can have. Being detached from emotions and feelings and being detached from their body, their emotional body responses. Now the earth signs, this is Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. These zodiac signs in particular, they usually have like a bad habit with their assertiveness and like getting around and feeling worthy of expressing how they feel. So a lot of times they end up using like materialism, possibly too much to express these emotions and feelings rather than showing it or being like assertive in a way or being like direct in a sense. If they can focus a little bit too much on what already is and have trouble with getting started. Less Capricorn on that. Less Capricorn, but Taurus has this problem. Like Tauruses could have a huge issue with like starting something up. It's like they kind of expect for a structure to already be there, or they just expect for things to already be successful. Like they don't really see too well into the future at all. Like they don't see potential, and they can be very like offensive towards people who want to start something up, people who want to like be a self-starter, people who need investment and stuff. Like Tauruses, I want to be honest, like, you know, one of the bad habits of Taurus, so the lower natures of Taurus, is they don't care. Like they focus more so on what already is popping, like what already has good numbers, what already has value. And they have a bad habit of not having experience, so they can be easily manipulated into things. By this I simply mean like Tauruses could have like a girlfriend or a boyfriend, right? And this girlfriend or boyfriend could be like really good, okay? And maybe like when they first started seeing this person, they felt that vibe from that person. Like they felt the value of that person, because Taurus likes to focus on value of things. So as soon as like they introduce this person to like their friends or family or something, they'll like notice that like their friends and family kind of like treat this person a certain way that makes them feel like they're actually not that valuable anymore. And then the Taurus will really like kind of question the person's value. Like, shouldn't you already know whether or not your boyfriend or girlfriend is valuable? Why are you going to allow other people to manipulate you into how you perceive your own significant other? And they will really trust their like opinion, like indirect opinion. Taurus naturally go through this in life. Here's a little fun fact tip about the energy of Taurus. It's like they will always attract manipulative people that like to manipulate how you perceive a particular person, place, or a thing. This is often because that person has ulterior motives. Like it could either be that that person likes you, or it could be that that person doesn't like you and they're jealous of your relationship, or they like that person that you're in a relationship with. So they will like manipulate you into thinking that person ain't shit just so you start to think that way about them, and then the relationship gets jacked up. Like you have to be like, if you're a Taurus, be careful. That's what's happening a lot of times in your life. Now, if you have really good friends and stuff like that, people you could trust, then yes, some of these people just may be looking out for your best interest. But a lot of the times you meet some conniving ass people who know how to manipulate a circumstance in the way that you're perceiving a person, place, or a thing. These are the type of people to make you turn down a flipping opportunity. Like they'll act like the opportunity ain't shit, and you're just like, it's like weird. You gotta be careful. You really have to gain some experience in your life and not be so stubborn and locked up to the point that you don't know actually what's going on around you. because a lot of times Tauruses, they can't see anything past the tangibility, the physicality of it. They don't understand things outside of its physical value, its beauty. They don't see like what's actually behind that stuff. So that's what I've noticed about Taurus, a really bad habit. They're easily manipulated into perceiving things. And this could affect the way they perceive things, like, you know, the way that they feel about people, places, and things easily. So Virgos actually have a bad habit of not being like assertive enough when it's necessary. So like somebody could like yell at Virgos or something like that, and later on when something light happens, like Virgos may snap. Like they may really snap, and they may like insult your whole entire life. And then that person will make you feel like, wow, like why are you being like this? But it's really just because you held on to things for far too long. To the point that now it's all just pent up and it's being expressed in an impulsive manner. Virgos too have like oftentimes an issue with like gossiping and just like talking too much about themselves in a negative way. But it comes off attention seeking because you're like, still talk about yourself, but you're being like critical about yourself. Virgos could be like indirectly attention seeking, because while Leos could just be very prideful and boastful about themselves, Virgos kind of do the same thing, but they do it in a very like vulnerable type of manner. Like they'll complain about themselves, they'll complain about others, they're too nitpicky about themselves, and for the most part Virgos are pretty clean cut people. Like there's nothing extraordinarily like noticeable, but then there's like nothing really like terrible either. Like they're pretty much on that like plain Jane energy. I'm not trying to say that they're not appealing, but I'm just saying like there's normally nothing wrong, and Virgos will continue to complain and nitpick about something. It's like some sort of insecurity within themselves, and they're just constantly looking for confirmation. But even if they get confirmation, it's like you're still gonna find something else to complain about, so what's the point of me giving you that confirmation anyway? It's weird. It's like, I'm just not going to say anything then. So then you'll notice like people will just start to be like, yeah, true. Because it's like, you know they're going to find something else to complain about. They could be very, very nitpicky and critical of themselves and others. Like instead of just accepting people like for who they are or accepting things for what it is, they always want to find out like some sort of dirt. Like they want to find a dirt behind everything. And it's just like, yo, some things are just like supposed to be left to be like what it is. If you're that intrigued by dirt, why don't you work in a profession that actually does that for a living? You can actually make a buck off of it. Instead of just like wasting time complaining about dirt that wasn't supposed to be found in the first place. You ever thought about that? Like, it's like weird. It's like they gotta always look for something wrong in themselves and others. It's like, why are you doing that for? Why are you doing that for? They gotta find something wrong. It's like weird. And I don't know, like, and I guess it's like, because it's a sign of purity. So it's like, in order for them to find that purity, they gotta find the dirt. Like, it's like weird. So anyways, to an extreme is a bad habit though of Virgo, you know, like they'll literally become attention seeking because it's like, my nose is too big, my eyebrows is this, and you know, my chin and my cheekbones is this and that. And it's just like, what you don't notice is that comes off like you're like, even though you're not bragging about yourself, you're doing it through a negative way. So you're complaining about yourself, but the thing is that you're still putting the spotlight on that area. So it becomes like a Leo, like it becomes kind of attention seeking. You know what I'm saying? So that's like a little bit of a problem with Virgos. They can also be complainers too, like Cancers. So that's what I noticed about Virgos as a bad habit. Capricorns. So Capricorns, their problem really is that they don't have the time. Like Capricorns do not have the time. So they come off very serious, too serious sometimes. They can't take a joke. They can't like be playful. So they tend to attract people that are like this because you can just feel them vibes. You catch them vibes. Catch the vibes because you're too uptight. So people push your buttons. People push your buttons as a result. Like, people will push your buttons, yo. So Capricorns, lighten up a little bit, you know? Maybe like take off from work. You probably right now, like during these times, COVID-19, you know, you're probably tapped a little bit more into your playful natures. But yeah, that's a huge problem with Capricorns is like they can be too serious to the point that they don't see the humor in things, like, or like somebody could make a small joke, somebody could add humor to their professional life in some way, and it's like they immediately judge it wrong and they're too critical of it, like they don't, they're unprofessional. Like it's like Capricorns, like, have several seats, like, relax. There's actually comedy as a profession. Is that unprofessional? But that's the person's profession. You can kind of act like things need to get done. Like, think of like your boss, like, oh, we gotta get this done now. Like, it's like, chill. Like it's not even that serious. Like, it's like they just feel like they always need to be in control over things, and they can feel as though they're losing control, losing the grips of things. And it's like, relax. Like, you still my boss. Like, I'm gonna listen. Like, just chill out. So they could be kind of like that. And then when it comes time for them to be like playful, it can just come off wrong. That's what sucks about like bad habits, is what happens is like a lot of times when you repress that energy so much, when you finally get the opportunity to tap into that vibration, it's like people will see that it ain't really you. Like, because your energy switches up too much, and because you've been repressing it for so long, it gets expressed in an extreme way, and it throws people off a little bit because they're not used to it, and also because you're expressing it in an extreme way. So that's what happens. So when Capricorns get playful, it's like it's too much, because usually they might have sipped a little something to get that way, or they may just be in a real lovey-dovey mood, so that people are just like, ew. Like, it's like people will really try to play Capricorns, like. So it's just that's what can happen to them. So then it's just important for them to kind of like learn to incorporate playfulness in some way in their everyday life, like slowly, so that when they never have to go to the extreme to express that energy, you know, in which it will throw people off. Because that's what happens. They'll express it and it'll throw people off, and then they'll catch that vibe that it's throwing people off, and it makes them feel bad for being playful, and then they end up being resentful against other people who can actually openly be playful. That's what happens. It's like a revolving cycle of like, you know, of extreme, and then of extremity of non-playfulness and overly extreme playfulness as a result, and then like bouncing back, you know, maybe in between is where you like want to get to. But anyways, that's what I've noticed is a bad habit for Capricorns. They could just be really too serious and thinking that they have to crunch time, like they don't have enough time for things and stuff, and they don't have time for you, like things like that. So the air signs, right? That's going to be Gemini, Libra, Aquarius. Generally speaking, the air signs kind of have a little bit of an issue with being practical. Like, they keep things up in the air a lot of time. Like, they have a lot of ideas. They could talk a lot, but sometimes they just have a little bit of difficulty in being decisive and like just making practical use of their intelligence. So starting with Gemini, one of the main bad habits of Gemini, okay, is Geminis don't care. I promise you this. Geminis do not care, yo. They don't care. And that's why they could come off two-faced, but they're really not two-faced. They just didn't care to begin with. A lot of the time, now this would be a bad habit trait. A lot of times Geminis, they just like communicate things and show interest for the time being, the circumstance. So it's like you're waiting on the line to get ice cream, and the person next to you happens to be reading a book or a magazine about cars, and you're bored, so you just like spark up a conversation with that person based upon what you see the magazine is about. So you start talking about cars, and you don't really know too much about cars, but you're intellectual, so you can kind of like act like you know about cars. And then now that person thinks that you like cars, and like let's say another time you guys are at the same ice cream place and you guys happen to be online again, but the line's shorter, and they're trying to talk to you about cars, and you're just like, cool. And, like, you just completely blow them off. And it's just like, Geminis, they don't care. Like, it's like they kind of have interest in something, and then they just like move on to a next thing. Like, so they can appear to be two-faced in that sense, but it's really just that their energy is very fluid in the area of intellect, of communication and stuff. So it doesn't mean that they necessarily give a shit about what like you're talking about. Unlike Libras, like Libras, they may just be sparking up a conversation with you because they like you, like they want to get to know you, or they want to be your friend, or they may be interested in you romantically. So they're willing to actually care about that thing just to be closer to you, possibly. But it's like Geminis, they don't have to like you or anything. They were just bored. So they have a bad habit of like being bored and showing interest towards things that they may not necessarily care about. Like, they can start to value things temporarily, and this could cause them to actually lack structure in life because they care too, like, because they don't care enough. They just are constantly like just getting distracted by random things and just picking up on those energies, and then they can lose like control of like, you know, what they really care about in order to form like more structure in their life. So that's like a bad habit of Gemini, just not caring. Like, they really don't care. They don't care. They're just conversationalists. They can just randomly pick up on hobbies that really isn't in their best interest. Like, part of their life purpose is to try new things, like to try new hobbies, because this can help them to figure out about their interest. But they could just easily be persuaded into investing in, starting, and just picking up a hobby that they didn't need to do. It's like, oh, Jamie is a knitter, so I decided to buy a knitting kit and start knitting too. And then they're like knitting for a flipping week, and they done bought a whole $300 knitting kit, and then next week they don't even want to knit anymore. They're like, I don't even want to do this. Like, they're on to the next, and now they just wasted a bunch of money on a temporary interest. That's another bad habit of Gemini. Now, Libras in particular, their bad habit is in the area of people pleasing, and also too focusing too much on the statistics, numbers, like less on statistics and more on like just numbers to a fault, because they sometimes forget to consider the statistics, like things that actually make sense. Like, so they can look at something and not understand sometimes that like the numbers are the same despite the size. Like, they don't get like a small triangle is like the same as a big triangle, like, rather than a triangle is different from a square. I don't know if that made sense, but anyways, I'm a Pisces, leave me alone. I'm gonna get to Pisces soon. But yeah, it's just like, for some reason, they just sometimes can compare things too much, and their comparisons are just not that good statistically speaking. Like, their comparisons could be kind of just too superficial and too basic. Like, they don't get deep enough to understand what's similar but not on the surface. Does that make sense? So a lot of times they can be easily misguided into wanting to be friends and connect with the wrong people, places, and things. A lot of the time, Libras could just be overly people pleasing. Like, yeah, oh, it's no problem. What's wrong? Like, how can I help you? Like, that kind of energy, it can come off fake, because like they could just be that way, but behind the scenes, it'd be like a completely different intention, and people could see that shit. After a while, people could see through it. Like, they could start things and then act like they're the ones who cleaned it up and like want to get credit for that. Like, you ever see like people who are the reason for the issue, the conflict, and then they resolve the conflict, and then they want only credit for resolving it, but they're the one who started it. Like, Libras could have that as a bad habit. You started the problem just so that you had a problem to resolve. Become a therapist then. Like, you like, don't start problems. Have people actually come to you about problems. So like, Libras kind of need problems to resolve, or they'll start creating them. it's just like they need to fix something. They need to resolve a problem. I'm telling you, our Libras will really start an issue. I've seen it. Like Libras will start a whole problem that wasn't needed to be started. Another thing about them too is just like they just focus too much on like people's likability. Like they could have started seeing somebody because like everyone else kind of showed approval towards that person, and as soon as like that person's not really like hanging out with friends too much or something, or they're not getting like direct approval that they can see anymore, then they start to question the relationship. And it's like, maybe I'm not really hanging out with friends anymore because we're seeing each other and like I was trying to give you more of the attention, but now you're questioning, like now you're questioning me as like my character because I'm not hanging out with friends. Like I love you. Like what the heck? It's like like Libras are weird like that. Like it's like as soon as they see your popularity is declining, they're like, oh no, like they either gonna want to help you. So again, remember, because they like to resolve problems, so they may cause a problem for you to not be popular just to fix it for you to make you more popular. I've seen it, yo. I'm telling you, Libra is like. So that's, a bad habit of Libra, like causing problems just to look like the angel that fixed it. And also too, just like questioning others and questioning your relationships as soon as like you feel like the person's clout is going down, like they're not being like noticed, or they're not like being approved, or they're not popular enough anymore. Like suddenly you don't want to be around them or something like that. It's kind of weird. I don't know. Aquarius is, their bad habit is literally just being weird to an extreme. Weird mannerisms, behaviors, schedule. Your work is weird. Like you're not on schedule. You have like weird hours. You're always changing your job. It's like weird stuff like that. Or they just may have a weird job. Like they may have a social media job. Like people be like, oh, what do you do for work? And it's like, oh, I'm a TikTok content creator. They have like extreme lifestyles a lot of the time, like in some way. Aquariuses could kind of lack mannerisms. Like, where's your etiquette skills? Like, where's your mannerisms? So a lot of times this is, a lot of times this could just be like a cultural indifference. Like, how sometimes foreigners, they could just come off like their mannerisms are just different. Like they may not necessarily say certain things that we expect for people to say, or they may say certain things that like you wouldn't expect people to say because it may be considered to be rude or something like that. That could be a bad habit. Like coming out of your own cultural comfort and interacting with the world, you can show those bad habits of having a lack of good mannerisms and etiquette skills. It's simple things like, your food may smell weird because of like the type of food you eat and the type of seasoning you use, because it's like from your culture or something like that. Aquariuses can completely sacrifice like something that people do on a day-to-day basis. Just completely sacrifice it, and then they'll go back to it on an extreme. Like it's like a detox, weird type of detoxing behaviors and stuff. So a lot of times Aquariuses just need to implement something like that into their lifestyle, so they don't do like some sort of weird extreme that's gonna cause their body to like malfunction. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I noticed about Aquariuses. They just have like sometimes bad mannerisms. They could be messy, lack etiquette, and just be weird, like overly quirky.